Akron Zips, who are currently coached by former Auburn head coach and son of Bobby Bowden, Terry Bowden. College shoot tonight. There are 8 games in the top 25, including number 8, Texas A&M taking on Northern Kentucky. And in the NBA, LeBron and the Cavs will go for 6 wins in a row. They've won 18 of 19. They're on the road at Milwaukee to take on the Greek Freak and the Bucks. I'm Jeff Biggs, NBC Sports Radio.
So you folks watching on Facebook Live, I'm going back and forth right now. Do I wear the headset? We can hear the theme music with the headset. Or I can just turn down the music here and operate sans headset and look like I'm not wearing earmuffs on the air. Hello, I'm Marky Bilson, your voice of choice for a new generation of Tri-Cities sports fans. The name of the program is Tri-Cities Sports Now, and we own the Tri-Cities. Hardest-hitting opinions is the reason why. We've also been known to have a pretty decent guest or two. Take last week's Scott Carter. Maybe I'm resting on my laurels a little bit. But that was a very telling interview as we look back. We'll get to a little bit, but, you know, there were all these reports that, ETSU will stay and hire a coach on staff. Other rival media was saying, that's what I'm hearing. And instead, an impressive hire. I don't like phrases like home run hire or anything like I don't. I don't want to be too gushing for somebody who, you never know how these things are going to work out, folks. I mean, but it's an impressive hire. I do say that. A very impressive hire. All things considered, Jeremy Pruitt was an impressive hire. Justin Fuente, a little bit some time ago, was an impressive hire, I think. I was less than impressed, I'll be brutally honest with you, than with Arkansas, bringing in Chad Morris. And frankly, I would have been more impressed with Tennessee if they had brought in Mike Leach or someone. That's going to be who made the better hire? Who made the better hire? Tennessee or ETSU? I'm thinking this over here. Now, here's an advantage for the Vols. Despite that cluster, you-know-what, of a coaching search. Tennessee hired a coordinator whose stock was high in Jeremy Pruitt. No, it really was. I mean, when you're a defensive coordinator of a team that spent most of the year ranked number 1 and could very well wind up being the national champion, that's a pretty decent hire. This, of course, is Marky's monologue. ETSU hired one whose stock, truthfully, was down, Randy Sanders. Because Florida State was 6-6, after being ranked number 3 in the country at the start of the year. And I know preseason rankings mean nothing. I mean, I know teams that began the year ranked number 2 and wound up 3-7-1. Okay, yeah, that would have been 95 or earlier, or with a tie in there, but yeah, sure. But let me just say this. Tennessee, on the other hand, and Sanders' stock was down. I mean, I know he's still the offensive coordinator at Florida State, but Willie Taggart wasn't going to bring him back. And that's probably why the ETSU job became attractive to him. Whereas otherwise, he was making $600,000 a year, and we don't know what the contract details. We know it's going to be a 4-year contract Pruitt will sign. And that's good. And there will be decisions year after year over whether or not it should be renewed. Interesting. Okay. Anyway, Tennessee hired their 9th choice for a head coach. Think about this. They hired their 9th choice for a head coach. John Gruden, Chip Kelly, Greg Schiano, Dan Mullen, Jeff Brom, Mike Gundy, Dave Doreen, and Mike Leach. Yeah, those were all guys that they wanted to hire one way or the other. I guess I don't think a formal offer was ever given to Dan Mullen. And a formal offer may never have been given to John Gruden, but they pursued. Curry pursued him, John Curry. Meanwhile, ETSU got the man that they wanted all along. Maybe the man they wanted 5 years ago. In fact, I think they did get the man they wanted 5 years ago. You know what else? I just said that Pruitt was the 9th choice of the Tennessee Volunteers. Maybe he was the 11th choice. Think of this. Les Miles, yeah, he was being talked about to whatever extent. Also, Chad Morris. He was interviewed, wasn't he, by Curry down in Dallas? Or pursuing Mike Gundy? So maybe it's the 11th choice that wound up going to Knoxville for the prom, so to speak. You know, the interesting thing about this is that Tennessee just got the 2013 National Champions defensive coordinator, whereas the ETSU Buccaneers got that team's offensive coordinator. I'm talking, of course, about the Florida State Seminoles. That was really a stacked team, that 2013 Florida State. I had forgotten how dominant they were. And they were very dominant. And maybe it's because they won the national title game against Auburn in the last minute. Chris Davis, a hero against Alabama, most exciting finish of all time, in the Iron Bowl, greatest game ever. You know, you remember it. How could you forget? And then, instead, you had a circumstance where, in the bowl game, Davis allows the winning touchdown pass. Here today, gone tomorrow. You know, hero today, goat tomorrow. It's the way it works out in sports sometimes. But that 2013 Florida State team, obviously very special. And yes, Sanders, he was the offense coordinator. Pruitt, the defensive coordinator. So let's break it down. Do you realize the 13 Seminoles averaged 52 points a game? Do you realize that? You know how much they allowed? They allowed 12 points a game. I went down. The Seminoles allowed only 17 points twice the entire year. Got into a shootout, or I don't know if they were, by the way, touchdowns or whatever. But they beat Boston College that year 48-34. I'm sorry, I didn't look at the box score. Forgive me. And then there was the aforementioned 34-31 national title game, BCS championship game against Auburn. So those are the two times that the Pruitt defense was torched a bit. But Auburn was still able to win because Florida State was still able to win because Florida State never scored fewer than 34 points in a game that year. Think about that. They never scored fewer than 34 points. That's a slight advantage right there to Sanders. Slight advantage to ETSU on the hire. ETSU's search was more private, but also shorter. Didn't result with their athletic director getting fired. Sanders will be at his job before Pruitt will be in Knoxville. Sanders will be coaching ETSU. He'll be the head coach. He'll be recruiting, all that, before Pruitt will for the Vols. That's an advantage for ETSU. Now, speaking of athletic directors, Scott Carter told me he would not interfere with Sanders' hiring of a staff, which I found very interesting because remember, it was Carter who was saying, about the foundation that Carl Torbush had laid and all of this. You'd think to continue that foundation, you'd bring back a few assistants. You'd say, I want you to bring back Rader, O'Kane, Taylor, somebody like that. Instead, no, we'll let Sanders choose his own staff. There are rumors out there that he pitched a staff to ETSU. I'm a bit wary of that because I'm thinking, could ETSU afford to hire the staff that Sanders would bring in? I mean, if he's bringing in old guys from Florida State, where they pay $250,000 a year for a positional coach, ETSU can't pay that. It's not in their budget. So would they come to Johnson City for 20% of what they were making before? Probably not. Anyway, the flip side of that is that Sanders, like I said, he'll hire his own staff, supposedly. Jeremy Pruitt, though, has Phil Fulmer over his shoulder. And people have got to remember, this is not 1998. You're not bringing in 1998 Phil Fulmer. You're bringing in 2017 Phil Fulmer. And remember, 2008 Phil Fulmer did not have a very good recruiting class that he was bringing into Tennessee. This is really the reason why he was forced out after a poor season. I guess second losing season in 4 years. But never, if he had a Butch Jones type recruiting class, yeah, I think that Fulmer could have continued on for 2009, my opinion. I think the lack of the recruiting class, it was always ranked like 35th or something. I think that's overrating recruiting rankings, but nevertheless. You know, people now looking back and saying, you should never have hired Phil Fulmer in the first place, never should have gotten rid of him. Well, at the time, you know, won-loss record, yeah, I could. 5-7, you have a bad year sometimes. It was the recruiting rankings, I think, that really was doing in Phil Fulmer. But remember what I say, recruiting ranking. He's the guy doing the recruiting now for Tennessee. Good news, Vols fans. Rivals now has your class number 59, one day before the early signing date. It was number 61. You are now only 4 spots behind Western Kentucky. Congratulations. 11 guys on the staff. 11 guys being brought in, verbal commitments right now according to Rivals. I mean, you tell me. The thing is, Fulmer might be meddlesome. And it is very telling that all the head coaches that Tennessee was interested in, when Fulmer took over, he started talking to coordinators. Oh, Les Miles' name was out there and then it was gone. Why? Could it be that Fulmer really still has ambitions of having his teeth, and I mean really sinking his teeth into the football program? And like I said, this is 2017 Phil Fulmer. It is not 1998 Phil Fulmer. There is a difference. Now, maybe he can regain past glories. 2005, Vols have a losing record, first one since 88. 2 years later, they're the SEC East champs. SEC East champs. Ainge throws the pick in the title game. You know, okay. It's not a knock on Pruitt that Fulmer might be meddlesome. But it appears that Sanders will have more control over his football program. That's an advantage for ETSU. That's an advantage for Randy Sanders. Look, there's something to be said for bringing in a coach whose stock is going up against one whose stock is going down. That's advantage Vols. That said, Tennessee did underwhelm in their coaching search. I mean, I can make an argument. The 11th ranked choice for a head coach, yeah, to put it mildly, that was a horrible search. Meanwhile, ETSU overwhelmed in their search. Hey, we got a great show today. Not only, I'm going to give away this book. John McEnroe right here, but seriously, I'm going to give away this book. I've got this. If you are watching on Facebook Live or something, we're at 499 followers on Facebook for 1420 NBC Sports Radio Tri-Cities. If you become the 500th, and to tell you the truth, you might be the 501 or the 502, but if you join in during this 2-hour period, noon to 2, I'm going to put your drawing up. I'm going to consider you for this book right here. Or we'll be taking calls today. I normally don't do this, but I'm getting some feedback on the show. Get a little participation here. 423-743-6124. Now, if you're calling in from Fresno, California, because quite frankly, we're online right now. Okay, we're not going to mail this book out to you, but if you are in the vicinity of good old Irwin, Tennessee, spelled with an E, town should have been called Irvin, wound up being called Irwin. Somebody couldn't spell. Nobody corrected them. We still haven't. That's why this town does not have the greatest reputation in the world, I imagine. But no, nevertheless, if you are in the area, you're traveling to Asheville, we're right there off of exit 40. John McEnroe, but seriously, it's for you. Best call of the day at 423-743-6124, as well as anyone who wants to like us on Facebook. And during this 2-hour period, we will have that. Talk a little bit about the Panthers ownership. It looks like Nashville is going to get a pro soccer team, a major league soccer team. What does that mean for the Tri-Cities? I think it could mean something big. We'll talk about recruiting with the early signing date tomorrow. The NFL playoffs, I want to talk about that. You heard the bowl game. Yeah, Lane Kiffin, he's getting an extension at FAU. Means nothing. If somebody wants to hire him as their head coach next year, that's a Big Five school, and it's entirely possible. I doubt that FAU will be able to keep him, but who knows? I mean, look what the buyout was for Matt Campbell at Iowa State. So, you've got that going on there. Hey, allfortennessee.com and Caleb Calhoun, man who did not like Randy Sanders. Why didn't T. Martin develop more? He's got a very, very interesting article that I want to tell you about on allfortennessee.com about the Pruitt hire and what Pruitt must do to succeed. It's Tri-City Sports Now. We are the freshest, the most honest, the hardest hitting sports talk show in the market. And I'll be coming back after this.
Gifts with instant games, they will make a lovely gift topper. Everyone will celebrate your presence at the awkward office gift exchange. You will be the hit of the party just by giving people a chance to win. So add holiday games to your gifts and you won't make the naughty